Hey, want to hear a Batman hot take? If Joker stopped showing up in comics or films or games for the next 5 years, I think we would be better off. And I mean everywhere.
I thought my jokes were bad.
Look, a lot of this is just personal opinion here, but I'm kind of sick and tired of Joker stories because it's the only type of Batman story I feel like we're getting sometimes. I mean, I know it's not literally that, but it feels like it, doesn't it? I mean, it feels like every Batman movie or game or whatever is essentially either a Joker story or has some tease for the Joker. And if Joker's not there, everyone just keeps asking, hey, where's the Joker?
Whenever Poochie's not on screen, all the other characters should be asking, where's Poochie?
The Joker is one of the most iconic villains ever. I would call him the Moriarty, the Batman Sherlock Holmes, but you know for a fact more people know about the Joker than Sherlock Holmes. The Joker has appeared in every major Batman adaptation in one form or another, the only exception being the black and white film serial. Yes, even James Gunn's DCU, by proxy of implying Harley Quinn exists here, and based on set photos from the upcoming Clayface film, has a Joker. And look, undeniably, some of the best superhero stories ever written feature the Joker. Even though I personally have issues with The Dark Knight, the Joker isn't one of them. It's one of the best depictions of the character, and it's a masterpiece of cinematic villainy. But the Joker has also been in a lot of crappy stories. And worse still, any story with a Joker appearance, even if it's minimal, becomes a Joker story. This is a unique trait, I think, to the Joker. If Lex Luthor, Sinestro, or the Cheetah show up in a narrative, the story doesn't become about them if they aren't a central character. Yet, people will point to Injustice, a story about Superman using his powers to create a fascistic world order, and say, yeah, this is a story that proves Joker is the ultimate force of evil. The Bastard shows up at the start of the story to New Gotham. And you get some folks online going, yeah, he's the main villain of the story, because without him, you wouldn't have the story. And you know what? They're not even that wrong. Joker finds a way to make himself instrumental to any narrative he's in, yet it seems so often that even a minor Joker appearance overshadows everything else. Imagine arguing that Kingdom Come, the graphic novel where the heroes of old retire to allow a new, more violent generation to take over, was called a Joker story just because the Joker shows up in the inciting incident. That's basically what is the case with Injustice. In fairness though, there are a lot of stories that put the Joker in a major role without him being the big lead. Case in point, the very first Batman film, the 1966 Adam West Batman movie, where Joker, alongside Penguin, the Riddler, and Catwoman, form a team of supervillains set on some dastardly wicked goal. Though I should note, the Joker in that movie is much more of a hired gun than a mastermind, more the muscle in narrative, as opposed to the Riddler's brains or the Penguin's cunning, or the femme fatale angle that Catwoman brings. But a more well-known example? Take Arkham Asylum and its multiple sequels, which I think are some of the best Batman video games ever made. And they're also all Joker stories. Even the one that takes place after Joker dies, that's still a Joker story. The events that transpire only happen because of the Joker, after all. You can still feel the shadow of the Joker across every action in that narrative. But because it's a video game with a lot of runtime, you can focus on other sections that focus on different Batman villains, allowing different characters to shine where, in a smaller, more tighter narrative, that wouldn't be the case. When people talk about Arkham, they talk about collecting Riddler trophies and how frustrating that whole event was. They think about how cool Harley Quinn and Catwoman are, how intimidating Penguin and Two-Face are, Poison Ivy, Mr. Freeze, hell, the Scarecrow in particular, I think was best in terms of adaptations in his appearance in the Arkham games, which is all the more noteworthy that Arkham Knight features him as the main antagonist. Although some like Bane don't get their due credit, a lot do. But it's still ultimately the Joker that is the central linchpin of the whole narrative. Therefore, Arkham, as a series, is essentially a Joker narrative. So even though some villains do get lost in the shuffle, I think it works because we get to see a fully fleshed out Gotham where Joker exists as one part of the narrative, as opposed to the entire whole of it. And it still allows other characters to shine regardless. you find when you look at adaptations that is less common than you might expect. I think the first Suicide Squad film is the best example of this tendency for the Joker to completely eclipse everyone else in various adaptations.
What, we some kind of Suicide Squad?
The film brought in some villains who had never been adapted to screen before, and some, like Deadshot or Harley Quinn, got developed well enough in the respective film, with Harley Quinn especially getting developed much more later on, while others, like Killer Croc, Katana, or Captain Boomerang, felt lost in the shuffle, despite, being main characters. Even today, the most discussed element of the film is the Joker. Joker eclipsed the narrative surrounding the Suicide Squad in a way that few other characters can. When Lex Luthor showed up in Batman v Superman, he didn't eclipse discussions of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, or even Doomsday, the way Joker eclipsed all discussion about everyone else in the film. Hell, Zack Snyder's Justice League became widely discussed not because of the various edits made to the film proper, but mainly because of the added characters, including the Joker. In The Dark Knight, there are multiple other villains, including Scarecrow and Two-Face, yet the Joker is the only person anyone discusses in that film. In fact, the Joker has a particular habit, as we notice later, of taking over Two-Face stories. The Dark Knight itself is a loose adaptation of The Long Halloween, a story about the transition between Gotham's criminal underworld being run by organized crime to being run by maniacs. In The Long Halloween, Joker is one of many villains who shows up to symbolize that transition. He isn't the sole agent of chaos, he's just one of many agents of chaos, alongside Poison Ivy, Penguin, Riddler, even Two-Face. But in The Dark Knight, he's the only one. He's the sole agent of change in the narrative, breaking away from organized crime to whatever mania the Joker represents. This is despite the fact that both Scarecrow and Two-Face are also forces of chaos in The Long Halloween, with Two-Face being essentially a secondary protagonist alongside Batman and Commissioner Gordon. But here, Scarecrow, who again is just as relevant as Joker in the original comic, is demoted to a generic, low-level villain, while Two-Face is demoted to Joker's weapon. In the comic, the Joker is Two-Face's weapon. And I think the problem is twofold. On one hand, you're adapting a long storyline told across multiple comics, all in one film, so you gotta cut some corners here and there. You need to, because you can't just introduce a ton of new characters perfectly that translate the assembly of villains to screen like that. You can't capture the collective madness of Gotham through all the characters that are introduced in the comic. You can't have a zombie man and a plant lady and a guy who loves riddles all in one place. I mean, unless you're James Gunn, but what are you going to do? Point is, in adaptation, you need to know where to trim, know where to focus in on. And the Joker's the easiest thing to focus in on, and he's a good example of the themes of the narrative. So for something like The Dark Knight, it works. On the other hand, The Batman is also an adaptation of The Long Halloween. And in that one, rather than focus on the Joker, they focus on the Riddler to create a different idea and theme of the narrative. The new guard of maniacs taking over from the old guard of mafioso figures. And this is carried over further in The Penguin, where that transition from organized crime to madness is further emphasized, and the old guard and old structures are violently ripped apart. And again, no Joker in sight to do that. But in The Dark Knight, you're able to really do a really quick encapsulation of madness through Heath Ledger's Joker, very effectively and very efficiently, with a great character. So I think he's become associated with the madness in Gotham, even though in the original comics, he's just one factor. Maybe one of the first factors to really show the inner crazed mania of Gotham, but he's not the linchpin. He's not the sole force pushing in this direction. This is in part because the Joker takes over a narrative, as discussed. The Batman was going to feature more of the Joker, but Matt Reeves wisely cut a scene out where Batman would have come to the Joker for advice while investigating the Riddler, in part because this would have turned the Joker into some Hannibal Lecter-esque villain, a character with very little screen time whose knowledge and expertise kind of overtakes the narrative somewhat.
When we were putting the movie together, this scene, even though I think that Barry and Rob did such a cool scene together, it was one of these things where narratively it wasn't necessary. You got everything that Barry was telling him, that the Joker was telling him over the course of the movie, and given the great length of the movie, it helped the story to take the scene out.
Don't forget, people think Silence of the Lambs is Hannibal Lecter's film, even though he barely is in the film. The real villain of Silence of the Lambs is Buffalo Bill. But would you want to turn the Riddler into this film's Buffalo Bill and the Joker into Hannibal Lecter? Well, not if you want to make the Riddler compelling. Less ultimately proved to be more, because it allowed other villains to be highlighted in the narrative itself. But this leads to a key problem. By making one villain the ultimate big bad of everything, the source of all mania, the underbelly of Gotham City's crime world, every other villain seems lamer by comparison, or perhaps lamer by implication. The reason why Tim Burton's original Batman film is just a Batman and Joker movie is to hone in on the two being direct foils to one another. Each created the other in Burton's interpretation. While it does annoy me that this movie makes Joker way too important to Batman's origins, more important by far than any previous adaptation, being the man who killed Bruce Wayne's parents, supposed to Joe Chill, it also makes it so Joker's impact is intense but also limited to just Batman's personal origin story. No villain that Batman faces in the follow-up matches Joker's impact on Batman directly. There's a personal element to it there. But both characters are still maniacs in a city filled with maniacs. Also, Joker never turns Harvey Dent into Two-Face, though Harvey Dent does take Joker's role in creating Robin, thus, again, intertwining Joker and Two-Face in strange ways in these adaptations. But I will say this, Tim Burton's film continued a trend that the comics have been flirting with for a while now, that Batman's ultimate and final adversary is the Joker.
See you in hell.
The Dark Knight Returns, the classic Frank Miller comic, the final fight with Gotham's criminal underbelly is Batman versus the Joker. After that, it becomes a story about Batman's fight with authority, first the cops of Gotham, and then finally the United States government as represented by Superman. The Joker is the last challenge to conquer the old madness of Gotham, and when Batman wins, he conquers Gotham mania, but now comes to conflict with powers that wish to exert itself over the little man.
That's not funny.
In Batman Beyond, we learn that Batman retired after a fight to the death with the Joker that led to Tim Drake becoming a new host for the Joker's returning mania decades later. The scene is deeply disturbing and shows the length that Joker will go to even in this animated world, and it does kind of establish him as the ultimate villain. If Batman were to stop fighting crime in this world, it makes sense the Joker would be that last challenge. And in The Dark Knight Rises, Batman retires after the events of The Dark Knight, effectively meaning The Dark Knight was enough to make Batman stop being Batman for several years. It takes the rise of Bane to drag Batman out of retirement, but effectively, Harvey Dent's sacrifice, again Harvey Dent a weapon of the Joker, was used to put criminals in jail perpetually, erasing the need for a Batman in Bruce's eyes in that continuity. Again, the Joker is Gotham's madness, but Batman, in order to stop that madness, effectively ended all crime in the city for several years, using the name and reputation of a madman. The best thing the Arkham games did, in my opinion, was to kill off the Joker to show Batman existing in a world after the Joker's legacy. But that's not to say the Joker is the only Batman villain to end Batman. Both the game and television show Gotham Knights, which both, by the way, have very different storylines and have almost nothing in common with each other, showcase very different ends for Bruce Wayne, either due to the League of Shadows or the Court of Owls, both of whom I think are far better foils to Batman than Joker, representing how far Batman's quest for order and justice can go, or the oppressive stranglehold aristocracy has over the actions of Gotham's people, of Gotham's industry, of Gotham's society. In other words, taking something about Batman and Bruce Wayne and amping it up to an extreme, to show how easily Batman could be the villain if he took things in a different direction. See, Joker being Batman's opposite isn't enough to make him his nemesis. A lot of Batman villains are foils to him, and this is something that Tim Burton understood. In Batman Returns, Batman finds himself confronted by a selfish rich guy in the form of Max Schreck, a man who becomes a freak after losing his family in the case of Penguin, and a soul out on a mission of justice who cannot balance the multiple identities they take on in the form of Catwoman. All of these are equally compelling as an agent of chaos wearing a jovial face, and a Caped Crusader who dresses up to scare criminals, but has a truly good heart. A parody of light and a representation of darkness. Undeniably, Batman and the Joker are great adversaries for each other, but it feels kind of forced how every adaptation arbitrarily sets up Joker as the true bad guy for Batman, by insisting on this foil between them, by speaking the metaphor out loud, rather than allowing the audience to come to the conclusion, no, this is Batman's ultimate nemesis.
You complete me. You made me, remember?
I'm your best friend.
It's not through action that we see the Joker become Batman's greatest enemy in most adaptations. We are simply told this is Batman's nemesis, his true opposite. And while other villains have subtext that support that parallel foil structure, the Joker, it goes beyond subtext. It becomes the text of the narrative, that they are destined to be enemies, that they are destined to be opposites forever. And there's something about that beleaguering of the point of this nemesis nature that I think kind of ruins it. In my opinion, the only work that has beleaguered the point that Batman and Joker are enemies is Lego Batman.
You think you're my greatest enemy?
Yes! You're obsessed with me!
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are!
Because that's a satire. It's kind of a pastiche of Batman. And it uses that framework to illustrate, in a kind of funny, quasi-satirical way, Batman's identity and his own personal character arc. It's tied in with Batman's arc, as opposed to anything else.
Batman doesn't do ships.
What?
As in relationships. There is no us.
If we have to be told these guys are enemies, it's not effective anymore. We have to be presented with it naturally. We don't have to be told Lex and Superman are arch enemies in the most recent Superman film, for example. We just see them oppose each other and see the opposites at work. We see the dynamics opposing each other on a larger scale. There's no need to tell us, this is Superman's arch nemesis. We don't need to be told that. So why with Batman and Joker do we have to be told constantly, this is Batman's arch enemy? It feels kind of redundant and strange, doesn't it? The real reason Joker and Batman have such a great dynamic is that Batman won't kill the Joker because of his code, and that allows Joker to commit increasingly terrible acts of violence, both out of his own twisted perspective of amusement to push society's own values back at itself through cruel humor, and as a cruel way to prove his agenda that all men are just one bad day away from becoming just like him, broken fragments of a world that has failed them. Joker is both a figure of the mob and its mob cruelty, as seen with his first appearance in the original Batman comics, and as well as in the two Burton films, but he's also a chaotic madman. He is Gotham's end result. He is Gotham's worst features personified, and while Batman is shaped by Gotham's cruelty, he becomes a figure inspired by the good potential of Gotham to help others become better. Batman is a broken man, yes, but he welcomes a new family to give them a chance to become better, while Joker takes wayward souls and breaks them down further, partially for his own amusement, but partially for his own selfish betterment. The Joker is a walking contradiction, just like Batman is, but Joker keeps wanting to break Batman's ethical directive, and Batman, beyond hope, thinks he can win the battle for Gotham's soul by helping fix the Joker.
I don't want to hurt you. I don't want either of us to end up killing the other. But we're running out of alternatives. Maybe we could work together. I could rehabilitate you.
It's a war that will never produce fruit. There's a lot to the dynamic that adaptations leave out because they'd rather just tell us Batman and Joker are destined for each other without actually putting the work in to establish why we should care. They assume we care going in, and thus don't put the work in to establish them as perfect foils. Undoubtedly, the worst example of this particular problem are the two Joker films. where Joker not only yet again hijacks the story of killing Bruce Wayne's parents and creating Two-Face, but he also becomes a symbol for true anarchy and rebellion that becomes larger than he himself can comprehend, which ultimately leads to his own death and the creation of the chaotic crime spree in Gotham. On some level, this can be read as meta-reflection on the character of the Joker, that he's become so much larger than life that the reality can no longer cement the various components of the character we have come to associate with him. But there's something more straightforward than that as well. Part of Joker's appeal is that he does parody and satirize the worst parts of society back at itself. He kills crime bosses in both Batman and The Dark Knight before killing anyone else. In the comics, he slaughters criminal and good guy alike, but he's never presented as a sympathetic character or someone you should root for, because very often he is always the worst person in a room, worse than the crime bosses and worse than the other maniacs in Gotham. But in the Joker films, we're supposed to feel bad for him. In some cases, we may even be supposed to think he's right.
Everybody is awful these days. It's enough to make anyone crazy.
In other words, he's a figure of revolution against an orderly, disinterested hierarchy. But there's little beyond that. And listen, I fucking hate this version of Gotham so much. It is a world where the Joker is the center of everything. At least with Burton's Batman, Jack Napier just happened to kill Bruce's parents in an act of seemingly random violence. Yes, it breaks canon, but it feels organic. Here the Joker may be Thomas Wayne's secret child, meaning him and Bruce might be long-lost brothers? Or maybe the Joker's just delusional? I don't know, who's to say? But it's this world that it's Batman without Joker. That Joker creates Batman, but that Batman never actually encounters the man who created him. Joker and Batman help create each other in Tim Burton's world, but here, not so much. Joker sets in motion the events that create Batman, but we never see Batman face Joker. Instead, Joker's own legacy kills the Joker, where a copycat, unimpressed by how little Arthur Fleck meets the imagined version of the Joker, just sort of... You know, actually, maybe this was more self-aware than they give it credit for initially. I mean, granted, it's still really stupid, but I digress. But here's the thing. The Joker wasn't always Batman's ultimate only foe. He was just one of the bad guys. Originally, Hugo Strange was created to be Batman's ultimate nemesis. The Joker was just a one-off bad guy who was actually killed off in his first appearance. Between his first appearance in Batman issue 1 and the arrival of the Adam West show in the mid-60s, Joker appeared across 3 comics, Detective Comics, Batman, and World's Finest, a total of 77 times. That's 25 years worth of comics, and only appearing 77 times. The Adam West series helped popularize the Joker again, and in that first film, he's one of 4 bad guys, and again, isn't really the big organizing force. He's more like the brute muscle. The Adam West Batman show had 120 episodes across several years. The Joker appears in 19 of them. The villain with the most episodes, however, was not Joker, but the Penguin, meaning in the 60s, the Penguin was Batman's ultimate nemesis. A lot of people reference the 90s animated cartoon where Mark Hamill plays the Joker. It's one of the best performances and one of the most iconic ones to date. Without this, you don't get Harley Quinn. You don't get a lot of the elements that we now associate perpetually with Joker. It's a great balance of mania and villainy, and no one would argue that Joker is not Batman's ultimate nemesis by the time the Batman Beyond movie rolls around and we see their final fight take place. It does the legwork. But how often is Joker actually in that series? Well, I decided to take a look, you know? How often is Joker really in this classic show? Though he feels omnipresent in the story, he only appears in 15 of the original 85 episodes of the cartoon. And when you factor in Batman's role in the Justice League cartoon, that means Joker and Batman fought each other with far less frequency than you would initially believe. Even more remarkable, a number of those appearances use Joker not as the main antagonist, but as part of an ensemble. Almost Got Him, The Trial, Harley and Ivy, and The Strange Secret of Bruce Wayne featured Joker as a side character, in some cases, a minor side character. And you know what? For a time, this was true in the comics as well. Stories like No Man's Land, Nightfall, Under the Red Hood, The Long Halloween. Joker is an instrumental character, yes, but he's just a character. In Nightfall, Bane's most iconic story, Joker mainly works with Scarecrow to inflict harm, and Batman has to stop them both before Bane finishes his mission of breaking the Bat, which is a fascinating element considering how Joker is now more an agent of pure terror than arguably the Scarecrow is today, where the Scarecrow has become almost neutered in some versions of the story. The Joker has become more frightening, more of a ghoulish, nightmarish figure, more interested in creating horrific haunted houses of nightmares than telling jokes like making the fish laugh. What makes it so frustrating is how every game-changing Batman story seemingly needs Joker in there somewhere. And this is something unique only to Joker. Not Riddler, not Penguin, not Bane, not Ra's al Ghul, Joker. When Scott Snyder started his New 52 Batman run, one of the best runs of that era, he started with the Court of Owls story, introducing a new component to Gotham that enriched Batman's mythology. He followed it up with Death of the Family. When the Joker shows up in Death of the Family, it had to be something big. He couldn't just do a normal Joker story, he had to do something that changed the game in some way. And by hyping it up as a game changer, unfortunately, it sets Snyder up for failure, because you can only change so much when people are expecting something to be changed. But part of Death of the Family's issues comes in how unfunny the Joker is, how focused he is on changing Batman, or being a force to improve and or destroy the version of Batman that we see. A part of this combined the tendencies seen in both Arkham Asylum, A Serious House on a Serious Earth, and Brian Azzarello's Joker graphic novel, in which Joker isn't a funny clown, he's a gruesome murderer. He's a force of nightmares. And look, The Dark Knight took a similar approach, but at least Heath Ledger's Joker was funny. The Joker, in his pursuit of being more ghoulish and nightmarish, has become much less funny in recent years, removing the one thing that made him so entertaining.
This town needs an enema.
I think The Killing Joke is an example of a story that kind of ruined the Joker, because in that story, Joker tries to prove his belief that all men are just one bad day away from going mad, and he fails to prove it. But the thing about The Killing Joke is it's an exceptional joke. It's not the norm for Joker to do that, it's the exception. So why would DC keep going back to that narrative? It's popular, yes. And so because of that, every story has to have the Killing Joke angle, the unbelievable cruelty that was actually not that common in old school Joker stories. And it becomes increasingly hard to believe Batman wouldn't just kill the guy.
Why on God's earth is he still alive? I'm not talking about killing Penguin or Scarecrow or Dent. I'm talking about him. Just him.
The man has filled cemeteries of victims behind him. By the time Batman leaves Joker to burn at the end of the Joker War, you get two reactions on average. About fucking time, and DC doesn't have the balls to commit to killing off their best villain. And, sure enough, DC did not have the balls to commit to killing off their most popular villain. Even in that issue, it turns out Joker's not really dead. They can never actually commit to breaking status quo, which itself is another problem. Despite being a force of chaos, Joker has seldom actually changed Batman's life in recent years. Many of the big changes, like shooting Barbara Gordon in the spine and killing Jason Todd, have been reversed. Honestly, the biggest impact Joker has had on recent comic continuity is the creation of Harley Quinn over 25 years ago. Even the Three Jokers storyline leads to a non-canon narrative, which ends up being more of a narrative mess, breaking canon left and right, and feeling like a decent-ish one-off story that gets worse the more you try to squeeze it into canon. But here's the other thing too. The Joker isn't just a Batman villain anymore. He's a main villain for DC. See, One other thing that annoys me about the Joker is how many major DC crossover events, like Joker Last Laugh or Emperor Joker or even Injustice, try to take the Joker, who's a Batman-specific villain, and make him a Superman villain. Make him a Justice League villain. And not as part of the Injustice gang like it used to be, but as a sole threat that even Superman can't defeat. And this is despite the Joker having no powers. There are stories that show Joker trying to pull mischief in Metropolis, and he's just too outmatched by Superman. It's no fun for him because Superman can just hear the ticking time bomb. The venom doesn't work on him. He can figure everything out quickly with his X-ray vision, and Joker is just left, well, I don't have any fun anymore. This is not fun for me to do. The Joker fits perfectly in Batman's specific world because he represents the chaos of Gotham that Batman has to stop. He is chaos to Batman's order, and Batman will never kill Joker because he has one rule he can't break, and Joker knows this, and wants to see how far he can push Batman before he breaks that one rule. But also, Joker's a criminal, with common low-tier motivations sometimes, like greed or money, and so Batman can stop that. There's a cat and mouse chase, it's a mystery. If you have powers to just see, oh, Joker's in that building over there, there's no investigation. It doesn't feel interesting anymore. There's no cat and mouse chase that makes the fight between Batman and Joker so interesting and compelling. They're just too powerful. And they're not really interested in playing with Batman's mode of investigation. If the Punisher ever fought Joker, Joker would be dead immediately, and there'd be no interesting dynamic between them. He'd just be a one-and-done bad guy for the Punisher to defeat. In some stories, such as Going Sane or the animated series episode The Man Who Killed Batman, it's implied that Joker, without Batman, has no reason to be a criminal and could very well just retire. Joker is only compelling because he has Batman to oppose him, which makes the decision to make a movie series where the Joker is the sole character who matters in the whole world kind of bizarre to me. But what do I know? The point is, Joker isn't a Lex Luthor or a Doctor Doom or a Red Skull or a Magneto. He can't exist without his hero. So what's the solution to all this? I said a lot of different things, but I think the idea is Joker's overexposed, overused. And so the only solution, I think, is to make us miss Joker. Keep him missing for a while. Take him off the page. Don't adapt him. Leave him not around. You see, something like Mr. Freeze, absence made the heart grow fonder for him. We haven't seen Mr. Freeze in decades in mainstream adaptations, and as a result, we really want to see Mr. Freeze now. For Batman 2, one of the big villains people keep begging to see adapted is Freeze. Even though his last appearance was terrible, people are ready for something new with the character. And the thing is, there's a character a lot like Joker, who was for a while a little overexposed, who went missing for a while and came back to thunderous applause.
Harry tells me you're quite the science whiz. You know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
Let's look at the Green Goblin. Willem Dafoe's version of the Green Goblin shows up in all three Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, either as the man himself or as an illusion conjured in Harry Osborn's mind, or a portrait. Everything Harry does is influenced by the Goblin. By the end of that trilogy, fans wanted to see anything but another Goblin. While Oscorp is central to the Amazing Spider-Man duology, Harry as the Goblin only shows up briefly at the end. In various games during the 2000s and 2010s, the Green Goblin barely shows up. By the time Norman Osborn returned in No Way Home, played once again by Willem Dafoe, audiences ate it up when he took center stage back, or rather, stole center stage. See, the Green Goblin isn't the central threat until late into Act 2, basically the transition into Act 3 of the film. He's just another villain brought into the MCU via the Peter Parker wish, timey-wimey, dimension warping shenanigans. He doesn't have a cool fight with Peter in the first half of the film. If anything, he supports Peter as he tries to fix the damages the other Peters did to their villains, as well as the damages Peter himself did to the multiverse. And then he does two things, very abruptly. He ruins Peter's plan by unleashing chaos into the Marvel Universe, and he kills Aunt May. And then he leaves until he comes back for the final battle late into Act 3. That's all he does. He shows up and does two very bad things in short succession. And people call him one of the MCU's greatest villains. And you know something crazy? They're right. Despite having the least screen time, despite working with none of the other villains on screen, Norman is the standout because he does the absolute most with the absolute least. And what's funny is Joker stories used to do that. There used to be stories where the Joker just showed up into an established narrative and screw things up. Joker takes over the Long Halloween for a couple issues because he just disrupts the murder mystery going on. Mask of the Phantasm is not a Joker story until it is in the third act, and he overtakes the narrative and makes it all the more interesting as a result. Injustice and Under the Red Hood are remembered as great Joker stories because the Joker plays a massive role with relatively little screen time. He's essential for the events, but also doesn't need to show up all that much. The Joker shouldn't be pontificating. He should be an agent of true chaos that disrupts a narrative. He should be a character out of place who disrupts a story in session already and takes control of it, pushing every character, even the established villains, to new heights. Ironically, The Dark Knight did that. That was a narrative about investigating the mafias and crime families that the Joker hijacked. But not every story should be The Dark Knight. But I think the big benefit of giving the Joker a break authentically is that you allow other Batman villains a chance to stand on their own. Matt Reeves' Batman is arguably one of the most successful adaptations of the character thus far, and it barely has a presence of the Joker. He's in one scene and one deleted scene, and that's it. As a result, across both his first film and the Penguin series, you saw multiple smaller villains take center stage. The Falcone crime family, Penguin, Riddler, Catwoman, now are all given some of the best writing ever seen in a superhero film. While the Joker is just one guy Batman fought. Also, there's Batman the Caped Crusader, a show that teases Joker at the end for its second season, yes, but otherwise showcased everything but Joker, including villains seldom seen before. They even found a way to make Harley Quinn work without Joker. And yeah, Two-Face showed up. He died after his origin story, but he still showed up. That's important. Obviously, there's a massive gap in quality between these projects, but it illustrates what happens when you take the most famous character of a story out of the equation for a bit. You get a lot of really creative interpretations of lesser seen characters that makes them compelling. Oh, and somehow I said all this without bringing up Young Justice, which arguably had the worst version of the Joker, who they promptly didn't bring back for a very long time in favor of actually compelling, under-adapted villains. I think that cartoon was what made me take another look at Black Manta, one of Aquaman's greatest enemies, after previously dismissing pre-New 52 Aquaman as kind of a joke. I mean, joke's on me, Aquaman's great, but I didn't know it at the time. And frankly, we are getting a Clayface movie before another Joker film. I think we may actively be seeing Gotham expand beyond just the clown prince of crime. Not that they're ever going to retire the character, no, there are implications that Joker may have some role in the Clayface film, but they're putting the character aside temporarily to allow other characters the space to take attention of the audience. Give Joker half a decade off. Let Two-Face have a film adaptation that continues past his origin story, which seems impossible nowadays. Give Poison Ivy or Mr. Freeze something worthy of their reputation, and actually make Scarecrow an intimidating villain. Give the Joker a rest. He's had a long run, he's been in almost every Batman adaptation thus far, but frankly, we deserve something different.
Excuse me. Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?